We're going to talk about growing your personal power. And we've just been looking at how easy it is for our sense of power to drop, how emotions can take over, how they can direct our behavior, and we looked at why this happens. And we've been focusing a lot in the last video about triggers, about getting reactive, and something happens and our sense of power drops, and then we react in a negative way, in a reactive way. We use our power to protect, to defend, to sort of manage our anxiety. But I want to say that having a low sense of power is not just a matter of momentary triggers or acute drops in our sense of power, but also there's kind of, let's say, chronic dimensions. There's long-term dimensions to this. So let's say somebody challenges you in public. It's happened to me many times. Somebody, says something, challenging or critical or really nasty to you in public. And, it's very shaming. It can be very humiliating. But let's say you have an overall healthy sense of power. So in the moment, maybe you feel ashamed, or maybe you feel upset and you start to sweat, or you feel anxious, or you sort of lose your place in what you're talking about. But you're able to kind of get back on the horse. You're able to keep going. And why is that? Well, maybe you've had good experiences in the past in school. Maybe you've been supported a lot. People have praised you for your ideas, or maybe that's actually happened a lot, where you've been criticized a lot and you've just learned how to develop a thick skin. All of those experiences, whatever they are, and they're all different, have sort of created like a stable foundation for you, like a stable sense of power. Well, when it comes to, let's say, your ideas or talking in public. So while someone criticizing you in public is not pleasant, it's not going to knock you off your perch. You're not going to go all the way down and stumble. Maybe you'll trip a little bit, but you'll get back up and you manage to keep going. So we'd say in that moment that your sense of power is pretty stable. And we'd also have to say that you sort of have a healthy sense of power. And so this last and final piece about growing your sense, developing your sense of power, working with a reactive use of power is this. It's how do you develop a really sort of overall healthy sense of personal power. And this is one of the most important things we can do to use power well. And that is to develop our personal sense of power. And we've already defined personal power as everything you have within you that helps you get by in life, right? Make friends and keep friends, negotiate conflict, right? Your connection to meaning and purpose, your ability to recover from difficulties, cope with difficulties, whatever that is. So here's how I think about it. When it comes to positional power, I think positional power is the license you have to act, but personal power, your personal sense of power, is your ability to act. So positional power puts you in the driver's seat of the car. It says, you have a license and you're allowed to drive a car. It doesn't make you a good driver, right? It doesn't make you able to, navigate busy streets or drive up a snowy mountain pass, right? To become a good driver, you need personal power, right? So personal power is what you infuse your positional power with in order to be effective, right, at what you do, right? That's how, so that you can lead is positional power, but how effectively you lead, that's your personal power. And there's a beautiful quote by Viktor Frankl that speaks to this, and that we don't have power over what happens to us in life, but we always have the power to decide how we want to show up for it, right? Who we want to be and how we want to show up. We all have a sphere of influence somewhere. We all have some way to impact the world around us, and we all have some control over how we engage with the challenges that we face. So while people can still misuse personal power, right? So it is the most important power to develop. We could still misuse it. We can manipulate, we can bully, we can deceive people, dominate them, use our psychological insight in sort of hurtful and cruel ways. Nonetheless, personal power is still, in my mind, the most robust and flexible power that we have at our disposal. And there's certain reasons for that. First, it belongs to us. So nobody gives it to us. And that means nobody can take it away from us either, right? It stays with us. We can lose access to it. We can forget we have it. We can not develop it. But it's always there. It's inherent in us, right? And we can always reach for it and grow it and develop it. And it's what we use to get along with difficult people, to motivate people, to build allies, right? It's ours, and it's ours to develop. In contrast to social power, right, social identity or positional power, that's conferred by people outside of us, right? It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the social context. So if we have a position, that position is only meaningful in the context of that organization. And once we leave that role, we leave the power behind. Even social identity power, which we feel is so important for outcomes in life, and it is. It still is, it gets its value from social norms and values, right? And so whenever we're relying on a power outside of us to feel good about ourselves, whenever our sense of power comes from a social power, it makes us fragile and dependent, right? Because we're dependent on something outside of us, right? Other people have to ratify that power, right? Or that power we only have in the context of an organization, right? So the more the power is not inside of us, the more we need to cling to that power, right? The more we have to try to manipulate the environment or other people, right? And so that's why I say personal power is more robust and more flexible, more stable. Social power is more fragile. It makes us more dependent, right? When our sense of power depends on things outside of our control, we become like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, right? Craving the ring and needing the thing outside of ourselves, right? Not able to live without it. So personal power is inalienable, right? We always have it with us. It can't be taken from us. We can just lose access to it. And no matter where we go in life, it transfers across all the contexts. Remember we talked about power and context, right? Certain powers are good for certain contexts. Well, interestingly, personal power pretty much works in all the contexts, right? But other powers belong to certain contexts, right? We can't take it with us. We leave our job, we leave the positional power there. Even informal power, that's limited to our social group. Even expertise power, by the way, which is a kind of personal power, it belongs in us. We can't use not every expertise is meant for every context, right? Social status might work in one group but not another, right? So personal power comes with us wherever we go, right? And it's always there for us, it can't be taken from us, and it goes with us wherever we go. So for these reasons, it's absolutely the most robust and flexible power we have. And the last thing I want to say about it is that it's unique. It's unique to us. Like it's not like there's some personal power that's better than others, or that there's one sort of type of power that, everybody should have. Everybody's different. So no matter what your personality traits, no matter who you are, your personal power, what gives you personal power is going to be very unique to you. And, when you're grounded in your own unique sense of personal power, wow, that's really something. You're really comfortable in your own skin, and you really are able to show up in a really convincing, authentic, and confident way no matter where you are. So there's 3 key dimensions to personal power that I want to talk about, right? However you grow them, however you develop them. My research into personal power has shown that there's 3 kind of pillars to personal power. And I want to go over them one by one and talk about how to develop these different pillars of personal power. They're courage, attention, and purpose, okay? So let's talk about courage first. We talked about the dangers of feeling powerless and what happens to us when our sense of power when our sense of power is directed by a feeling of weakness. So it's not really surprising that one of the key dimensions of personal power is courage. But what do I mean by courage? So courage is very close to, in my mind, what psychologists call an internal locus of control. It's the feeling that we have some agency. We can do something, right? We're not always going to win. We're not always going to have a positive outcome. But for every problem we face, we can sort of think of something that we can do. And I call that courage because it really is sort of the ability to lean into challenge, right? Not to flee from it, not to feel like, oh my God, why does this always happen to me? I'm never going to, be able to win here. I'm never going to be able to get out of this jam. You may not. But courage, or this locus of control, allows you to feel like, okay, what can happen, or what can I do? What can I think of? Who can I ask, for help from, right? So we have some agency, we have some sphere of influence. The odds may be against us, but there's always something, right? We're not just a leaf in the wind. So this is essential. And this, by the way, is like the basis of so many world religions and philosophies, that we have some control over our mind, or some control over how we show up for life. No matter how small, we can do something, right? We can manage ourselves. We can find greater meaning or purpose. We can learn through the experiences that we're facing. And so one of the expressions I love, or one of the quotes that I love that really speaks to courage, is Joseph Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, in The Hero's Journey. "In the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." So that means that whatever you're afraid to face, or whatever challenge besets you, if you lean into it, if you turn and face it, right, you will grow from that, right? There's a treasure. When you face what you're afraid of, there's a treasure waiting for you. And for me, that treasure means you're going to grow, you're going to develop, you're going to learn something. And so when you have courage, this pillar of personal power, you do the hard thing, not because you're being paid for it, not because, someone tells you to do it, but you do it because it's the right thing to do, and you know that you're going to grow. You're going to grow from doing what's difficult. So can you grow courage? Can people grow courage? Can you become more courageous? Well, I think courage is like a muscle that you can train. And there's a couple things I want to say here about how to develop, or how to sort of work on growing courage as a way to grow your sense of power. The first one is make learning your goal, right? So when challenges happen, you don't feel victimized. You don't feel angry, you don't feel blocked, right? You don't just get depressed. I mean, yes, odds may be against you, but there's always something to learn. You're always going to learn something. You'll get stronger, you'll get smarter, you'll feel more competent wrestling with your obstacles. The second one is know your strengths and know your powers, right? And don't just stick with what makes you feel comfortable. Remember I gave the example earlier about having expert power and just always, sticking within your narrow area of expertise because it makes you feel stable, it makes you feel powerful. Well, sticking with just one strength or one power doesn't make you courageous. It might make you feel in control, but actually knowing what all your powers are, knowing how to grow them, knowing what your strengths are, having the flexibility of being able to sort of draw on different strengths and draw on different powers, that is a way to grow in your courage, is to grow that pillar. And finally, very similarly, know your weaknesses and have a plan for developing them. Have the honesty and courage to know, where am I not good? What haven't I developed? What are my weaknesses and what can I do about them? Right? That is courage, right? You're not afraid, you're not protecting yourself. Whenever you don't face a weakness, or whenever you're sort of protecting yourself from feeling badly about something, it makes you vulnerable, it makes you frail, it makes you unable to really rise to the challenge of the moment. So that's courage, the first pillar of personal power. And now I want to talk about the second one, which is attention. The second core element of personal power is attention. Focus, attention, right? Being able to place your attention on things. Now, you might have courage, right? So you can face a tough challenge. But if you don't have attention, you may not be facing the right challenge, right? You may not be deploying your courage in the right area, right? You may be facing the wrong set of challenges. So courage is important, but without attention, you can't really apply that courage. And attention, what do I mean by attention? Attention is presence of mind. It's focus, right? It's the mental focus of what should I be focusing on now? What's the most important thing to train my awareness on, right? Attention means that you've made your mind a master, or you've mastered your mental focus, right? So you're not just distracted by whatever is happening in the moment, whatever tweet, whatever email, whatever text message, or whatever internal mood or thought or story you're telling yourself, right? So you're able to really stay present, stay focused, and determine where, when, how, and what you're going to focus on, right? Not you, not your device, not other people, not the latest headline or drama that's happening, right? Now, even in the best of circumstances right now, we rarely have time to focus. We rarely have time to really sit and put our attention on something for long periods of time. And I have coached so many people who had the best of intention, right? They were really open learners. They were really willing. They were completely, engaged and enthusiastic to learn things, but they just had no attention, right? They were scattered. They had to reschedule. They had to rebook. They were never present. They were being pulled in a million places. So they couldn't really make any progress on their growth or on their goals. So we know that how important it is when you put your focus on something, it grows, right? You make things happen by putting your focus on it. In a way, you could say that your attention is the only thing you really have, right? What you put your attention on grows. What you don't focus on doesn't grow, right? So if you don't have attention, you don't have power because you're just completely reacting and responding to everything that happens to you. That's why it's the second pillar of personal power, right? It's just not enough to be courageous. You have to also be centered, be present, right? To be able to not just be constantly distracted by things, right? Otherwise, you're just responding to everything, but accomplishing nothing. So, how can you develop attention? Can you grow it? Can you grow attention? Well, you can improve it. You absolutely can. And I want to say the first way to improve your focus, your mental focus, is to remember you have a body. I know that sounds funny, but be aware of your somatic self. Be aware when you lose focus and you get distracted, it probably starts with your body, right? When you get rattled, it starts physiologically. Maybe your breathing increases, or you feel tension, you're sweating, your heartbeat races, you feel tense, right? So learn how to notice when you get agitated. Learn to pick up on those tiny signals and develop methods for sort of calming down, breathing, relaxing, right? No decision or action is ever a good one when it's made from a really agitated state. The second thing for attention is to, similar to what we talked about earlier, learn how to track and tame your triggers, okay? So notice what things distract you, what people rattle you, what situations, what events, what topics throw you off your game. Learn how to think about in advance, what situation am I walking into? Will it be difficult? Who will be there, right? So getting triggered is the biggest threat, right? Remember, to using our power well. So we need to be sort of anticipatory, right? In advance, track the kinds of things that are going to happen, sort of become a little bit like hunters or stalkers, where we're really mindful of, when do I get distracted? What kinds of people or situations really rattle me? And how can I prepare for that? How can I anticipate that? How can I practice a better response? The next thing is be in control of your time and your attention, right? So have time to think. Turn off your notifications. I mean, you'll see this now in every productivity video. Everybody's talking about it, but it's so important. Don't be a victim of emails, phone messages, Slack channel, whatever. Turn off notifications. Set time aside when you decide you're going to be answering your phone calls or text messages, right? We rarely have time to think. I mean, really, we rarely have time to think. We're going from meeting to meeting to meeting with social media, with news, with everything's happening. So you have to sort of be really vigilant around your boundaries. Set time aside for just thinking, for just doing nothing, right? For studying, for being alone, for reflecting. And then finally, how to really develop or improve your focus and your attention is to slow down. Those of you who maybe work with your hands, carpenters have an expression when something's really important. They say, measure twice and cut once, right? So really slow down. When something's really urgent or important, take time, you know. If it's really critical, slow it down, double check, get somebody else to double check your work or think, or just give yourself that space to slow things down so you can really focus and make sure you're not just acting out of an agitated state. Okay, attention. Let's talk about the third pillar now. So courage, attention, and purpose. So courage and attention are really important, but they're meaningless without purpose, right? If they're not aimed at the right goal. So you can have great courage to, you know, do something really difficult, and you can have the attention to really focus on it, but without purpose, right, you don't know really where you're going. You're just going to go around in circles, right? So purpose is the third and final dimension of personal power that we're going to discuss. Being connected to purpose is so important for using your power effectively. You know, I say that power really needs to be tied to purpose, right? If there's not a greater purpose, if there's not a sense of mission, if there's not some bigger meaning for why you have power or why you're using power, well, chances are you'll just use it for yourself, but also you'll fall prey to stress. You'll just, like, for example, if you forget the bigger picture, you're just going to get overwhelmed with all the minutia, with your to-do list, right? Life is going to be nothing more than just like one thing you have to do after another, and you're going to forget that like really bigger purpose or that big picture. So purpose is like a North Star that guides you, right? And also it's connected to resilience. When you have that North Star, right, it allows you to learn from mistakes. So if things go wrong or things are really difficult and you can remember your purpose, you can remember the North Star, you can think, okay, what are we learning from this? How can we correct our mistakes? How can we do better next time? Let's try again, right? It keeps you going. And it's, in a way, it's like having a healthy immune system when you have that purpose, because it kind of protects you from the dramas and the urgencies of the moment, because you're, again, just going back to that bigger picture, that North Star, and it helps you stay the course. So, can you grow a sense of purpose? That sounds funny. Can you grow? Do you just have a sense of purpose, or can you grow it? Well, you can definitely improve your connection to purpose, right? So everyone has a different sense of purpose or meaning in life, but you can do things that remind you and help you stay centered and connected to your purpose. So one of the most important ways we stay connected to our purpose is to remember our death, right? The Stoics used to talk about this a lot, is to contemplate your life from the point of view of your mortality. If you think about decisions, if you think about your time, your day, what you're going to do with your one precious incarnation from the point of view of death, you know, you will make better decisions, right? So, you know, if you think about, what do I hope I did in this moment, or what should I be spending my time on, given the fact that life is short, or that I'm going to die, or, you know, if this were my last moment on earth, what would I do better here? That will always connect you to the greater good or to the bigger purpose. Similarly, connecting with the future, right? Your future self. So you can also make decisions from the point of view of your future self. And there's research on this too, that we make better decisions when we think about our future self. So you ask yourself, you know, what decision do I hope I will have made, you know, if I were 80 or 90 or 60 or 50, you know, looking back, what would my future self counsel me here? You know, what would my future self wish I had done, right? What's meaningful to my future self? Not just my momentary small self that's all caught up in the momentary drama. The other thing you can do, and this is really simple, is just make it a habit to think about your personal goals and visions, right? So maybe you think to yourself as you're listening to me, I don't have an overarching sense of purpose. I don't really think about this, right? But each day, each task, each challenge you face, you can ask yourself, what would I like this day to be about? Or what would I be happy with achieving? Here I've got this task, or I've got this challenge that I'm facing. What's the one thing that I'll be happy to accomplish? Or at the end of this day, what will I be really glad that I've done, right? So always ask yourself, what's the one goal that would make me happy, or what's my personal vision for this particular job, right? That's a way to kind of exercise your connection to purpose. And lastly, what I want to talk about, connecting to purpose. Think about yourself from the outside in. You never know who's looking up to you. And this is something that we all forget to consider, that we're role models for other people, right? And maybe you're not in a leadership role, right? You don't have to be in a leadership role. Somebody's probably looking at you, and maybe they're admiring you. Maybe they're looking up to you. Maybe they think that you're someone to follow, right? Maybe they think you're wise. So always remember that. Think, how do I want to live if other people are modeling their behavior after me, right? What do I want other people to see? Maybe it's your children, maybe it's your grandchildren, right? What will you be proud for other people to see about you, right? Think about yourself as a role model. Become the person that you want other people to see and to follow. So that's how to grow purpose. So those are the 3 pillars of personal power: courage, attention, and purpose. So in the next class, we're going to look at the final trap of power, the self-serving use of power, and the final key to power intelligence is develop your role of power.